Welcome into K-State Online. I'm Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway. KSO Postgame Live. We are here in a familiar situation, as we have been time and time again after a K-State basketball game in the Jerome Tang era. Not only has K-State lost, they've done it in an embarrassing way, and it just feels like another low point. It's not a whole new low. They kind of keep meeting that bar, and they know how to waste good equity for a fan base that is starved for good basketball rather quickly. The anticipation and backing disappeared pretty quick for last year's team. It hung in there for a little bit with the second year team, but then they had a player on the team that had to be kicked off the roster, and that kind of sent things into a weird spot. And they obviously weren't ever able to get anything good going there. And then this year, it starts off pretty well. There's a lot to like, you would think. But after a close loss to Nebraska and Kansas City, things have gotten really, really bad for this team. They looked lifeless from the jump against Indiana, hung in there a little bit, ultimately blown out in the end. And then tonight, never a leader in their game with Bowling Green at home. And for the first time since 2005, Bowling Green has defeated a power conference opponent. It is just another embarrassing mark in futility that Jerome Tang and his staff have brought to Kansas State basketball.
Yeah, it is a performance that, like, you kind of maybe in hindsight could have worried about it after how lifeless they looked at Indiana, because you could make an argument after watching the last two games. Now, this team is pretty fragile. Like, if they're still letting Nebraska beat them, like 2 weeks later now, and having that be a reason they lost to Bowling Green, that's not good. And I could kind of see a little bit of a Nebraska hangover at the start of the Indiana game, but then you can kind of take away from that as like, okay, Indiana's a really good basketball team. I think that they're clearly going to make the NCAA tournament, and they've got it figured out. You can't have that same hangover and look pretty lifeless when you come back home against Bowling Green. Because as we discovered against Indiana, if this team is just average offensively, they're going to lose a lot of games. Like, they have to be so good on offense because they are so bad on the other end of the court that it doesn't matter. And I mean, it was like the greatest hits of like what happens in a Jerome Tang era loss post first year. It was not taking a timeout until there was a minute and a half left in the entire game.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, Jerome Tang didn't use a timeout in this game.
No, he didn't.
It was down double digits at halftime to a middling MAC team, and he didn't use a timeout in the first half. The same thing that we talked about, he didn't use one at Indiana last week until it was too late.
So you got the classic letting this roll out and not calling a timeout. You got lineup roulette. You got new starter roulette. Like, it got to the point where down 17, you put Obi, Taj, and CJ Jones on the floor at the same time, and like, whatever, they got some stops. But, you know, I posted about it. They were getting stops, and Bowling Green had a point where they had only scored 4 points over like a 5-minute stretch, and K-State cut the lead by 4 because that lineup was so bad on the other end of the court that, sure, you're getting stops, but they don't matter. And then you got more lineup roulette to end the game because the good players on offense are so bad on defense that you can't have them out there. But then the good players or the average players on defense are so bad on offense that you can't have them out there on the other end of the court. So it just is unbelievable how this has kind of fallen apart already. And at like Seton Hall coming to town on Saturday, they're playing way better than a lot of people thought. It could get pretty ugly if they have this kind of performance that just seemed lifeless and off from the start. Like that is another thing that is just very concerning, is how they start. And then I don't like being this kind of person, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we only see them every once in a while, and then during games it's just the heat of the battle. But did not love the body language that PJ Haggerty and Jerome Tang had talking to each other.
And some people liked it after. I didn't particularly get great feelings based on how PJ Haggerty acted after the Indiana game when we were speaking to him. There's just something that was off-putting about it to me. And look, it's alarming that in a game where you need to score and you're trailing, your best player only plays 13 minutes in the second half and is effectively benched, obviously, to get a message across, it would appear, from Jerome Tang. And again, this comes down to, like, look, maybe Haggerty is the vessel of the problem right now, but we know that, like, it's not his fault. Jerome Tang is the one that's at fault for this, because here we sit yet another year that Jerome Tang has apparently either, I don't know if he has disenfranchised the players himself, or he just is whiffing in the evaluation category that it takes to do this thing. But Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel, personality disasters last year. Doug McDaniel had a DNP early in the season because of it. Coleman Hawkins had different things last season because of it early on. And here we sit. I didn't think it was going to be a problem with this team this season. But in game number 8, PJ Haggerty is spending minutes where he has been benched because of whatever issue there is there that Jerome Tang thought could only be solved by sending a message and riding the bench. So it's just, again, it's all these same problems popping into all of this. And you look around and, we talked about the timeout situation. This is a coaching staff that I start to look around and I say, is anybody actually a real coach? Does any coaching actually take place? Because Jerome Tang not using his timeouts, kind of your job to do there. I think that would be at least one simple thing that you could probably try. So you have that. And then, because this team has struggled the last 2 years, basically total offensive control was handed over to a guy that wasn't on the staff until this year. Wasn't on the staff until late. It was a late addition with Matthew Driscoll, and he was supposed to be the savior. Well, here's 2 straight games where this K-State offense that has to be elite fails to score 70 points. And sure, you know what? You can maybe write it off at Indiana, Big Ten team, first road game of the year, all that. You can't come back home and score less than 70 against Bowling Green. So what's Matthew Driscoll doing? And we know that there's at least one other coach on this team that I don't know that he's coached a single day in his life. Maybe waved some towels and hyped up some students, but he obviously hasn't hyped up his players. So totally inexcusable for this to happen in year 4 of the Jerome Tang era. And the reason why this isn't just it happens. This is not Northern Colorado for Bruce back in 2014. It's because we saw this same crap last year. We saw the same crap the year before that. And we saw this team just over the last 3 games, the performance deteriorate more and more. Nebraska, they shot themselves in the foot. They hung in there, ultimately lost. Indiana never gave themselves a chance in that game. Weren't accountable for how they played in that game afterwards. Jerome Tang tried blaming everything on turnovers. Well, guess what? Indiana turned it over about the same amount as you in that game. And I sat there going, I don't really think it was the turnovers that were the problem in this game. Yeah, there were a lot of them, but Indiana turned it over a lot too. Guess what? K-State, 6 turnovers tonight, 2 less than Bowling Green. Turnovers, not the problem for this team. They don't play defense, and it's clear that David Castillo might be the only one that's busting his ass out there right now. So it's a shameful performance by this team. It's shameful where this basketball program's gotten to, because it is apparent that we all had the bag pulled over our faces again, and I'm the ringleader of that. Although I will tell you this, I said, I believed in these players. I didn't believe in this staff long term. That's turning out to be correct because this program is in total shambles right now. You cannot be losing at home to Bowling Green. They might be fine. They might be a good team. I don't care. You could give me the best MAC team year after year. K-State and any Big 12 school should never lose at home to a team from the MAC. And K-State got housed tonight by Bowling Green. It's inexcusable. And as much as, this is on Jerome Tang, he is the head coach. He has to wear it. The players have to take some accountability. But this all goes back to the top where if people have problems with football, you got problems with basketball, other problems within the athletic department. Gene Taylor has to wear this too. This is a poor reflection of the job that he's done over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, and to me, I talked about earlier this year, I think it might have been the Tulsa game, where I said, basketball is a weird game, and, sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way, whatever. If K-State loses this game and it's by, 2 or 3, it still feels gross and inexcusable, because how could you get to this point when all we kept saying was that you got to go 10-3 in the non-con, and then if you go 9-9, you're going to the NCAA tournament. But if you play like this and you're kind of non-competitive against Bowling Green, that is where the whole thing for me is just what is this season going to be? Because I just did some looking about the scores and how the game all went. This game was a double-digit game more than it was a single-digit game. Bowling Green took K-State to the woodshed tonight. And this is a performance that if you are a K-State player or on the staff, you got to figure out, how can we get better from this? And how can you fix it? Because it doesn't get any easier. Bowling Green in the early net was, I think, the 3rd or 4th worst team K-State was going to play all the rest of this year. And, you came out and looked terrible. And it just is so frustrating to still be here in this space, having to talk about lack of effort and lack of toughness. And I'll give Dave Castillo and Taj Manning, because those are the player representatives at the K-State podium tonight. They said that the one word that they're really lacking is toughness. And that is stating the obvious. This team is not very mentally tough. They're not very physically tough. You can get away with, I think, the flailing and foul baiting when the game is relatively close, and PJ Haggerty has gotten a pretty tough whistle this year, but there were multiple times today.
He has to some extent, but he embellishes a lot. That makes him tough to officiate, I would say, when refs get tired of his crap. And I go back to a life lesson that I learned at, let's see, what year would that have been? It was probably my 10th or 11th birthday party, where me and a bunch of my friends playing basketball in the driveway, and everybody's arguing about, is that a foul? Is that a carry? All this other stuff. And we try to get my dad to come ref the game for us. My dad gives us the life lesson that I've carried with me to this point, and I will teach my daughters this. He said, you guys can either quit bitching and keep playing, or just be done. And PJ Haggerty needs to learn to quit his bitching, because that's all he has done the last 3 games. And you know what hasn't happened? He hasn't played as well. And so if the calls aren't coming, battle through it. Also, don't just bank your entire game being based around that. And that's what he's been doing right now. So,
well, it's not even totally that for me. It's if you are doing that and then not getting back on defense, and he's done that multiple times throughout the last 3 games too, it's that is where it really becomes a problem. But I did the pick and preview for this game. I've done it for every game. This was one where I never really once felt like I've had to make it not be a double-digit win and just move on and kind of go. And that's why one of the things that I had was just stacking wins, because this was a game that you couldn't really lose. with how the rest of the non-conference schedule is. And then just being able to rebound and show that you're mentally tough. And they completely failed their first test of not being the team from last year. And again, like that's just what's so frustrating is that we thought that this team is going to be so different because they had guys that just seemed like they were more bought in and had better leadership and all this other stuff. 8 games in, we're talking about how the team doesn't look very mentally tough because they've essentially let Nebraska beat them now 3 times.
Yeah, it's but you know, like I'm trying to decide if I think that that's them letting Nebraska beat them or if, you know, this is just who they are. But you're probably right that like if they win that game, maybe you know everything feels good. But and so it doesn't really matter because
I don't know if this is who they are or Mississippi State is like truly awful.
Yeah, well, Mississippi State is bad. They're not good. We know that for sure. But yeah, so there's a lot to unpack from this tonight. But K-State clearly in a terrible spot right now, and you know this had to be the last chance to get this thing right because you can't just keep dropping the ball, missing the NCAA tournament, and you've already put yourself in position to do that. Like you said earlier, we've noted that 10-3 is what this non-conference needed to look like. Well, we thought 10-3 could be in play without factoring in that 3 straight losses would happen to Nebraska, Indiana, and Bowling Green. We thought it could be a 2-loss stretch. Didn't think it would be Bowling Green that handed one of those losses. And certainly, you know, based on how they were playing and what you would have expected from this talent, that they probably should have been, you know, it should have been a 1-loss stretch. But now they have 3 losses. You have Seton Hall coming to town on Saturday. If you can lose at home to Bowling Green, you can certainly lose at home to Seton Hall, who's playing much better than anticipated this year. Next weekend, you have to go to Creighton. They're down this year. Not an easy place to play, though. This team already looked like crap on the road this season. So I just really wonder what they have left in them because you can't lose anymore because this team has proven now, even if the offense was playing well, the defense has been so bad that it has been made clear that they're not going to be able to win probably as many Big 12 games as once thought. Like this is a 9-9 is now looking like the ceiling for this team in Big 12 play because the defense can't get it figured out.
I mean, they can't even go zone without having guys get blown by. Like it's truly incredible. Like Nate Johnson really is the only newcomer that came in that isn't a traffic cone. And that is part of the problem. And I mean, they played better when they went zone, but I don't think that's the long-term solution is just go 1-3-1 and junk it up. At some point you have to show some mental toughness and guard somebody that's in front of you. Like I hate teams that just play zone. You know this. That's why I hate Syracuse. Like it's just you don't even have to play good defense for, I think, this season to turn around. I think that they just need to play average defense. And I don't think that they can play average defense going forward.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, this is where I go to talking about Driscoll's involvement in the offense. That's what this team is supposed to be. In the way they've played the last 2 games, it has been anything but that. So more, you know, the defense is frustrating the way it is because so much about defense is an effort thing and being smart on the floor. I've said it plenty of times, but people aren't, if you're not born a good defender, you're not going to be good at defense. But you can pass on defense if you just play smart and you just play hard given your ability. And it's clear that K-State's not doing that right now. And I've been critical over the last 2 seasons before this one of how Kansas State was coaching up defense because I would watch time and time again from game 1 to game 30, the same guys continue to make the same mistakes defensively, And if that doesn't change, I go, well, that seems like something you can at least tweak to where you're buying yourself a little bit more help on that side. But the offense is the biggest problem right now because that was K-State's only chance this season. And the offense is way, way, way short of what we saw the first 5 games of the year. And now, really, what they should have been. So that to me is the bigger concern. And that's what K-State has to figure out. And that's also why people are talking about personnel. We have to get in that. Andre Kostic doesn't play at all tonight. Look, I get it if you think Andre Kostic's defense sucks, but
Everybody
you just
else
gave up
does.
82 to Bowling Green. Everyone's defense sucks. CJ Jones is getting to play because you think he might be good at defense. Newsflash, he's not. So that's just where, and the lineup roulette thing goes into that, where Marcus Johnson plays for the first time this season tonight because why? Well, I guess maybe just because he played at Bowling Green last year, so they threw him a bone. I have no idea. But if a guy hasn't played in the first 7 games of the year, I don't think getting him in the first 6 minutes in a game that you're struggling is the time to do it. I think you put your best players on the floor. Or when you're down double digits in a game that's getting later, you probably need to put your best offensive options on the floor because what have I always said, Drew? Yeah, it helps to stop teams from scoring to win basketball games, but the actual way that you win the game, like it's in the rules, is if you score more points than the other team. So you have to score points to win a basketball game. So, and we saw that, that Bowling Green, their scoring slowed down when Moby Ike-Garuka, Taj Manning, and CJ Jones were on the floor together. But you know what else also slowed down? K-State's scoring, because they still got outscored 33-31 in the second half by Bowling Green. It is a total cluster right now for K-State basketball. And it's just another little tally in the column that says Jerome Tang is in over his head running this program and coaching a Big 12 basketball team.
Yeah, I just don't get why you can play Marcus Johnson in the first 6 minutes of the game tonight when you're getting killed. But earlier in the year, like, you can't get him out there once. Like, I just, that was confusing. There was just times where it's like CJ Jones was so bad in the first half that he played 11 minutes and didn't have a single stat besides an assist and was minus 14 in 11 minutes. And they kept keeping him out there. It's like at some point, like Andre Kostic can't be any worse because he would at least probably get you something on offense. And even like during Buka, it's not like he's been like lighting it up when he's out there, but like tonight being the first time he's had a DNP, like, yeah, I think that is the long-term thing that like kind of pisses me off the most about this game is like we're still seeing lineup roulette for no real reason outside of like apparently something just isn't clicking well at practice or you're not or they're just not developing or whatever. But your 2 of your guys that should be playing more not being able to play for whatever reason. And then Elias Rapik, after probably his best game of the season last time out against Indiana, only plays 7 minutes tonight. Yeah. Like I have lots of questions and I don't think that we'd get a lot of answers for why like he only played 7 minutes and then like Taj Manning plays 13.
And I also get to some extent wanting to try to send a message if you think that needs to happen with this team. And it's clear you lose to Bowling Green by 16 at home, a message needs to be sent. But when you already have 2 non-conference losses and you're down as big as you are against Bowling Green, and you also have missed the NCAA tournament the last 2 years, there's been a ton of dysfunction for this basketball program. I don't really think you can afford to do the whole I'm not playing you to send a message type of thing, because whether you're sacrificing some principles or not, you have to win games, and you're not going to win games if PJ Haggerty and Nate Johnson and Abdi Bashir and Andre Kostic aren't playing for you. And that's where K-State found themselves tonight. And I go back to this all the time. As nice as it is to win with people that are great people and nice guys, at the end of the day in sports, nobody gives a crap, because you could be the worst person in the world, but if you're the best player on the basketball court and you're the best coach and you're all these things, people will put up with a lot of it to
Yeah,
succeed.
I mean,
And K-State right now, like I don't care about what you are other than an athlete, because that's, why we talk about you. And there's a lot of athletes, football and basketball right now, that haven't lived up to the expectations, coaches as well. And it's a serious problem.
Yeah, I mean, look at how Ole Miss treated Lane Kiffin literally up until yesterday. Like, he's probably not a great guy.
Yeah, a lot of evidence to suggest that he's not, but I would sign up in a heartbeat to have Lane Kiffin coach one of my teams,
because he just wins. I mean, it is just a little bit scary to think about where football and basketball are right now, and that, it's December 1st and you're kind of thinking, is the season already over for basketball?
It is. I think it is, because we've seen this movie the last 2 seasons for K-State to suggest that yeah, sure, maybe they could get this thing figured out. Again, you don't have the toughest schedule in front of you that you're going to face. K-State dropped 20 spots in KenPom, by the way, with the loss tonight. They went from 54 to 74, but you could lose to Seton Hall and you could lose to Creighton. The other 3 teams you're going to play, they are so bad. There is a minimal chance that K-State loses those games.
Well, last year, Mississippi Valley State was beating K-State at halftime.
And true. But you look around, like last year, like this is where we have the evidence that tonight you played Bowling Green, who was 108 in KenPom entering the night. K-State lost to number 88 LSU. They lost to number 136 Wichita State. They lost to number 64 Liberty in the non-con. And like you talked about, they were struggling with Mississippi Valley State. They scored 120 points against Pine Bluff. That was the kind of the best burst of their season, but they still gave up a lot to Pine Bluff in that game with the 73. You can go back the year before that, and we know obviously they hit the low point against Nebraska. They had the loss to Miami, who ended up not being good. USC as well. We didn't know it at the time. That team, most of their struggles came in conference play, but you have these moments that would suggest they're not going to be able to get this thing figured out. And now this is the worst stretch in a non-conference that Jerome Tang has had at K-State. I mean, let that sink in, this 3-game losing streak, because last year you did lose at St. John's, to Drake, to Wichita State. Well, 2 of those were tournament teams, and we know 2 of them pretty good. Nebraska's not as good. Indiana, whatever. Maybe they could beat Bowling Green again, whatever. So this is just there's no reason to suggest that this thing's going to get figured out. And it's because of the last 2 years, and it's because of what we're seeing this team go through. And I think it's very telling that David Castillo and Taj Manning, 2 of only a few guys that have been on this team for more than 1 year, would go in there and say that toughness is the problem, because those aren't the 2 guys that I would question their toughness based off how I've seen them play this year. So I believe they are referencing the other guys on this team, and based off the results and the actions, that would check out that the toughness would be in question for a lot of the newcomers. And that's on the coaches to sniff out in the process of landing these guys, and then also getting them up to speed and ready to play once they get here. A couple of comments that I want to get to. Mason, I can't believe you said this team is making the tournament a week ago, and I think you even said they will be a 6th seed. I did. I thought that the offense was really going to help change things. I thought that you had guys that were going to be better off because they weren't. I guess the lack of notoriety that came with a lot of these guys, you just assumed that, hey, maybe this thing will work out a little bit better. But it's clearly not the case. They have once again, at least early on here, put themselves in a jam personality-wise because they have guys sitting on the bench for extended minutes that you absolutely have to be playing. So, yeah, I got it absolutely wrong. I thought this team, just the single version of this team, was going to be good enough this year. I was skeptical. I didn't buy in long-term for this team in this program, but I thought this year this group could do it. Clearly wrong on that. We also have some people. Carter says, I do agree with Joe. At what point does Gene Taylor have to go? The basketball hire was an absolute miss, and there are so many conflicts of interest on the football staff that no one will. And Joe Tillery said Gene has failed in basketball, football, and NIL ventures. It's time. I mean, absolutely. Look, I did a kind of a monologue about this close to a month ago, maybe more now, where even before, some of this other stuff went down, I had serious questions about Gene Taylor being the leader moving forward for K-State athletics, because it's just kind of been ho-hum, nothing happening the last few years. There are no more projects to do. Basketball has been in an unbelievably bad spot. They haven't gotten this thing figured out. Football is trending downward. And really the basis of why I did that was because it was when it was announced that jersey sponsors were likely coming to college football next year. And it's going to give you another opportunity to secure an extra revenue stream, which we know is endlessly important in this day of college athletics. And I just pointed out the fact that you look around at a lot of other places, there's an ad on the football field at Iowa State, not at K-State. That's money that Iowa State's making that K-State is not. There are ad sponsors on the floor in Hilton Coliseum, in Allen Fieldhouse, in a lot of these places. There's not in Bramlage Coliseum. That's a revenue source that those schools are getting that K-State is not. And the biggest one was that over 3 years ago, Gene Taylor announced that they had gotten the blessing from the Bramlage family to go and find naming rights for Bramlage Coliseum. Well, here we sit 3 years later. That would be a pretty nice penny that you could get. Nothing has happened on that front. And since that point, we saw a very public and strange moment between Gene Taylor and Chris Kleiman after the Utah game. And while I stood up for aspects of that situation and encounter, I don't have anything against Chris Kleiman for what happened there. I can understand where he's coming from in that moment. I'm not telling people that, you have to like it or accept it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. For me personally, I could understand how it got to that point. And I didn't think it was unprofessional of Gene Taylor to go up there, because I think a lot of times people forget that athletics isn't a real job, relative to the other. Every job has their own nuance to it, and people seem to forget that. But I didn't like what Gene Taylor said, you're not going anywhere, that kind of thing, because you shouldn't be saying that to a coach that's about to go 5-7 or 6-6 when the last 2 years have been poor underperformances, especially with the way November went. You should be, at least having some conversations and some thoughts when year 3 of failing completes. And it was clear in that moment that Gene Taylor was just like, no, not happening, and Gene Taylor is also the guy that signed Jerome Tang to that extension. And look, some people will say, well, a lot of fans were on board with it at the time. You're right. Fans wanted to keep Jerome Tang at the time. I don't know that fans were in the weeds about, hey, this is how the buyout situation should look to try to keep this thing intact. And on top of that, fans are very emotional. So they have to act on their emotion. The administrators are getting paid a pretty penny to not have that emotion in the decisions that they make and see the forest through the trees and be able to make clear-headed decisions and in some ways be better than what the fans and those that have a significant investment emotionally in it do. And so even though fans may have wanted something and Gene Taylor obliged, it's not the fans' jobs to get it right. It's Gene Taylor's job to get it right. He's very clearly got it wrong. So I've been hinting at it for a long time that I don't think Gene Taylor probably deserves too much more time running K-State athletics. And it's not because he hasn't done a good job in the past. He has. But Gene Taylor shouldn't be the guy that hires the next football or basketball coach at Kansas State. And so if he's not going to be able to do that, then what's the point of still having him here right now? Gene's done a lot of good for K-State. It's coming to a close though. It hasn't not a lot's happened recently. I don't see a lot on the horizon for him to do, and I think it's time for some fresh blood, and it's going to have to start there at the top. Like it's a bad spot for K-State right now, and the fact that people are like the general public is shifting their focus from the coaches running the programs to now also pointing fingers at the top. That probably tells you it's time. So the pressure really isn't even on Gene Taylor anymore. It's on Richard Linton, the university president, to step up and show how much he values athletics, because part of keeping a healthy university when you have this level of a Big 12 power conference school is you have to keep them going in the right direction. And he's staring at a pretty big mess on his hands right now.
Yeah, I don't have anything to disagree with you on that front. I saw a comment that I want to go with. It's from Mike F780 on which coach would you rather have, a coach that never or rarely beats KU but consistently makes deep runs in March Madness, or a coach that splits a series but rarely makes the NCAA tournament. If you're not picking A, I don't know what you're doing. But then he also said that that's like the difference between Bruce and Jerome, and I disagree with that. Bruce had one run in the NCAA tournament. Like that, I would say that we really haven't seen a coach at K-State that is A in a long time.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the last three head basketball coaches at K-State have all made it to the Elite Eight with one team. But outside of that, they have all lost in the first weekend or not made it to the tournament at all in that stretch. So like it's a weird spot that they're at with this. But yeah, you take A and
if you're not taking A, I don't know what you're prioritizing.
Yeah. No.
But like I said, that's not the difference between Bruce and Jerome, because Bruce didn't really do that either. So it's just kind of is what it is. But that tonight, among other things too, something that just kind of occurred to me is like a lot of people have to play better. But Nate Johnson has not been good in the last 3 games. And he was not good offensively again tonight. And Abdi needs to stop shooting mid-range twos, falling away. Like, that's driving me a little bit nuts.
Yeah, I don't understand a lot of what's happening on the actual on-floor side of things right now for K-State basketball. It's a disaster. I mean, you look at tonight, they shoot it poorly. The free throws, that's the most glaring thing about PJ Haggerty is the lack of shots going down. I didn't watch a ton of him at Memphis, so I can't speak to the form, but like I don't love the way that threes look coming out of his hand. The foul baiting thing is I'm sick of watching it. You're not going to get the calls, so play basketball. We've been over that already. And the free throw line, his free throw percentage has dropped significantly, and that's even prior to tonight. Like he was mixing in way more misses early going this season than what he was doing at Memphis, which is a major concern for K-State. So, and that's the other thing too, is that you look at the productivity of these players, not just statistically, but also in the personality side, the intangible stuff. It has shrunk and gotten worse for players when they come to K-State, where you look at Coleman Hawkins, and I understand that he was put into a role that, he probably wasn't truly built for, but people knew that he was like a pot stirrer. and a little bit of a prickly personality at Illinois. Brad Underwood managed it pretty well. It's very clear based on how last year went that Jerome Tang had little control over Coleman Hawkins. And Doug McDaniel, I mean, it was pretty bad at Michigan. He wasn't allowed to play in road games down the stretch of his final season there. But it almost feels like Michigan had it handled better than Doug McDaniel. So that's the other area of this. And then, Naquan Tomlin got kicked off the team. Achor got kicked off the team. So I go back to it is that 2 straight years Jerome Tang had players kicked off his team because for whatever reason, non-basketball related stuff was a problem with them. It's on you for bringing those players into your program, and it's on you for not getting those players to assimilate in a way that gets them to push whatever that stuff is, tuck it away, and not be so big of a problem. And here we go again that Jerome Tang can't coach the stuff on the floor, and it's starting to become apparent one more time that the stuff off the floor isn't his forte either.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to get fixed, and I just don't know if it is fixable at this point, because from what we've seen the last 2.25 seasons, like, it doesn't look like it's fixable.
Well, and I mean, you go and look. Attendance tonight at Bramlage was listed at 6,900. I'm sure people that are there are going to tell you that they're not even sure that many showed up. I get weather was a little iffy. That's going to continue to be what crowds look like until this team wins trust back. And it's probably not going to happen, but like you have to, when you're in Manhattan in a place where your 2 biggest pockets of fans are 2-hour drives in opposite directions. Wichita and Kansas City are 2 hours away from Manhattan. That is a major commitment for people to make in the middle of a week to go watch your team, whether you're playing Bowling Green or you're playing Texas Tech. Like, people just aren't going to show up for that because, why would somebody waste 4 hours on the road when they have to get up and go to work tomorrow and kids have to go to school to go watch 82-66 losses to Bowling Green? It's not going to happen. And you have to earn that back if you're K-State, and you're running out of time, because I think the fan base has been pretty forgiving to this staff, all things considered, for how the last 2 years have played out. And they want to believe, they want to buy in, and each time they just keep getting smacked in the face and disrespected in some ways.
And even like just this year, everybody wants to buy into something so bad just because of how football went and how women's basketball has started. And I mean, there were people that were getting bought into this team after the 5-0 start, and now everybody just kind of feels like an idiot again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's I don't know what to tell people because this isn't going to get better. Obviously, like, yeah, sure, it could, and we could all look like fools once again, but the evidence is overwhelming that it probably isn't going to get better.
This is either the beginning of the end, or this is the thing that gets this figured out.
Yeah, and like, look, I just if people can't accept that there's a problem here, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm not talking to the fans here. Like, if anybody has issue with what's being said, or people think about you in the athletic department or around this team, like, you just need to look at yourself. Like, nobody's saying anything that is false or saying anything just to be nasty about it. It's because you've given them reason after reason after reason to be pissed off. Like, K-State football fans could have really jumped down Gene Taylor's throat for taking the Iowa State game to Ireland. They did a little bit, but you know what? It was a full stadium against North Dakota. and you might got let down there. You really did with the performance. Then the Army loss, and then the Arizona loss. Like, you just kept getting bludgeoned by all this stuff. And then here's basketball again, where there's, again, same cycle. Everybody gets hyped up. Oh, no, this team actually stinks. They're going to let us down. And people gave K-State basketball a chance again, and they've been proven that it's just the wrong thing to do. So, I mean, it's December 1st. We have a long ways to go in this basketball season. And when this team goes on their little, 4-game win streak in Big 12 play, and they're on the loosest end of the bubble, nobody's going to care this time. They're going to get fired up a little bit because, like you said, Drew, there's not a lot of good going on to cling to right now. Shout out to K-State volleyball making the NCAA tournament. Only thing you got going for you right now. But people aren't going to buy in fully, and it's going to take a lot, and it's just, there's going to be a lot of meaningless games played from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, I just it's hard to get really excited about the rest of the year, and that sucks because after the Missouri game, I was optimistic. The Newman game was just kind of whatever to me, and after the first 5 games, I was pretty excited and just kind of looking forward to what they could do against better competition. And even the Nebraska loss, you still felt like, that's a pretty good team that K-State lost to, and they played better than for a lot of the game. Then last week was gross, and then today was somehow worse.
Yeah, Ron says, how are we so wrong about the last 2 hoops teams? Well, I'll tell you how this happens. And 1, it's a little bit of the people want good things to happen. 2, K-State has gone out and done significant things and gotten players that a lot of high-profile schools want in the transfer portal. Like, big-time programs would have wanted PJ Haggerty, Abdi Bashir, Nate Johnson. Like, that's a fact. They were able to land them. Coleman Hawkins last year, Doug McDaniel last year. And this is where you don't have to feel stupid as a fan for buying into this, because you're not the one talking to these players. You're not the one that is bringing them in. You're just kind of, at the hold of this team, and you get what you get, and you cheer for it because they're wearing purple, and you're not the one that gets to decide if this person's going to be the right personality fit or whatever to make the team actually work. And year 2, things kind of happened. You still have to fault Jerome Tang for the Naquan Tomlin thing. He did a number of things that did warrant him being kicked off.
I think you could even fault him for the Quez Glover thing. Like, you knew that you were probably going to need another guard, and you got a guy that was injury prone.
Yeah. But if those guys were here all year, they're probably in the tournament. They battled a little bit, whatever. Last year, though, like, none of that. Like, it was just all those guys, or most of them, were train wrecks in a lot of different ways. And I mean, maybe something that needs to be evaluated more in hindsight. This staff wanted to keep Doug McDaniel after last year, and he was like, Achor got kicked off the team. Doug McDaniel was probably the biggest headache for the team last year. They wanted to keep him. So like, they just continue to not, and it's weird because you would think that Jerome Tang and this staff, that would be one of the things that they're best at, is being able to evaluate the character and motivation of somebody. And it's why these teams continuously keep flopping, because tonight you don't lose to Bowling Green for any reason other than you don't give a shit. And that's what happened tonight.
And to be honest,
and it showed in the way that guys looked, in the minutes they played, in a lot of the things that we can quantify and not quantify from this game.
And Jerome Tang basically said that same thing. Like, he said that Bowling Green came to Manhattan with a chip on their shoulder and to win a basketball game, and that K-State just went out there.
Which, look, I see some people, they like and some of the things that Jerome Tang has said, where he's taken this, the fake accountability is what I would call it, when things continue to be so bad. Then you're just like, well, I'll give you the fan service here.
Kenny Dillingham is also really good at that.
Yeah. So, Jerome Tang said we didn't deserve to wear a K-State uniform tonight. That's fine. That's great if you say that after one or two times. But, it's really starting to pile up the amount of times that Jerome Tang has slid comments in like that recently without ever actually taking real accountability that explains, where the problem is and, what
How you
they've
can
done
fix it.
wrong. It's just, remember we talked after the Baylor game last year when in Kansas City where it was Baylor, right? That they lost.
Yeah, it was Baylor.
And people were trying to ask him questions, and he's like, now's not the time for it. And it's like, yes, now is the time for it. The season just ended. And Chris Kleiman did this on Saturday too, when I asked him questions about evaluating Wells, LePack, and Wells. And he's like, oh, well, and it's like, well, the season just ended. So when is the time to ask you this? Because we only get a finite amount of opportunities to discuss these things. And I would think that after you've just had a large sample size, 100% of your season, you should be able to give a little bit more insight. So, I get it. You can't please any side because you can be like Chris Kleiman and keep it all kind of internalized for the most part, or you can be like Jerome Tang and say the stuff like we didn't deserve it. I would have left, if I was a fan. Okay, that's great, but you keep saying it. So how are you going to fix it? That's what I want to hear, because I didn't hear anything after the Indiana game that suggested how they were going to fix those problems, because he kept trying to blame everything on turnovers. And I'm going there and thinking, again, Indiana turned it over just as much as you. I don't think turnovers were the problem. I tried asking him, okay, can you actually coach guys to not turn the ball over as much? And I asked, did you have teams at Baylor that were turnover heavy in the year and it got better? And he told me that he didn't need to talk about Baylor because he knew how to coach. I'm just like, I genuinely want to know what the approach is here. Fans genuinely need to know what the approach is here. And again, this is where, pardon my French, but these questions don't get asked because people are trying to be a dick to these guys. These questions are asked because the fans deserve answers, because it's the only reason why you guys are getting paid millions of dollars to sit in a quarter zip and just watch basketball and football and call some plays. I get it's more than that. I get that there's a serious time commitment to it, but these press settings aren't just for funsies. They are to have some accountability and to be able to speak and get the message across to the people that are the sole reason why you have these really, really nice jobs. Because guess what? It would suck to get fired. I understand that. It would suck for a coach's family to be upended, have to move, and all this. But it's probably a little bit easier when you have a multi-million-dollar contract that you had been getting paid for years, and then you get a buyout on top of it. So, yes, you're not heartless if you suggest some of these things in the way that sports end up working out. But coaches have to start doing a better job of being truly accountable and laying out the path forward and not dodging it. You're not hiding government secrets. These are not the nuclear codes that you're hiding from everybody. Instead, you're just gatekeeping crappy football and basketball teams from your fan base and not being honest with them. Have some respect for the people that are out there that support you day in, day out, that are giving you their money, because they're not idiots and they shouldn't be treated like them. And I don't think Drew's an idiot. I don't think DY's an idiot. I don't think Kellis is an idiot. I don't think I'm an idiot. That sometimes these questions get asked because we genuinely want to know the answer, because I think it can tell a story, because I think it can help people get some insight. Just like I didn't need somebody whispering to Coleman Hawkins last year in Allen Fieldhouse that he doesn't have to answer that question. Guess what? We are all genuinely curious what the hell Coleman Hawkins had to play for after 4 straight NCAA tournaments at Illinois, Big Ten championships, and then he comes to Kansas State, and all he gets is a massive failure and a team that sucks and a team that's going nowhere. What does he have left to play for? And you know what? To Coleman Hawkins' credit, he stepped up. He answered the question. And you might remember this, Drew. We did our stand-up after that. And I came out of it and I said, I feel better about this team moving forward and what Coleman Hawkins can provide based off the answer he provided. The next time out, they almost beat Baylor on the road, close to their best performance of the year. Then the win streak started, and then injuries piled up and some other stuff went down. They fell up short, but like, we're not idiots. Don't treat us like we're idiots, and we're not in there to try to get you, and we're not in there to try to make you feel bad and wear you down. We are in there to make sure you are giving the answers to the fan base, because at the end of the day, that's the most important part in this. And so the fake niceness, or the fake, oh, we didn't deserve to wear the jersey tonight, blah, 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 whatever. Don't care, honestly. Figure out why you didn't deserve to wear it tonight. And if you can't figure that out, then you don't deserve to wear it. And you don't deserve to wear the Nike branded purple pullovers. You can hang those up too. The players keep cycling through and through. We're getting darn close to the time where the adults, the people getting paid millions of dollars a year by K-State, you also probably need to be cycled through, because I'm sick of hearing the excuses. I'm sick of all the fakeness. Be real.
Yeah, I got nothing after that. That was great.
I just, we're sitting here and like, it's been a crappy year for K-State athletics. If Gene Taylor was the CEO of a big time company, the board would have voted to have him removed at this point, I would imagine, or they would at least be saying, hey, you might want to look into some stuff there. And like, if the answer is, well, we really can't because we're financially hamstrung by those contracts. Well, oh, shoot. I wonder who signed these guys up for those contracts that might be tough to get out of. I might look at that guy and see what's happened. So, yeah, it's K-State basketball is a problem right now, but they are one of just many problems that K-State athletics has. And we're staring at a Ron Prince level stretch here for K-State where, it's not even Prince. It's really that 04-05 stretch where basketball wasn't good. Snyder was at the end of 1.0, and nothing good was happening at K-State. You're back in that situation. The fact that the only thing that you can hang your hat on right now, if you're K-State, this is meant as no disrespect to Jason Mansfield and Pete Hughes, but that baseball and volleyball are the things that you have going for you as an athletic department. That's not good if you're a Big 12 school. So K-State's got to get some stuff figured out, and Jerome Tang has to get his stuff figured out, and we'll see if he does. He didn't the last 2 years. Hard to buy that now all of a sudden this is going to be a difference maker. Chris Kleiman has to get it right next year, and there's a lot on Gene Taylor and Richard Linton's plates moving forward, and they need to come up with some quick plans. And I would also like those two guys to have some accountability, because you are running major parts of your base's lives. And it would probably be nice for the athletic director to be a little bit more forward facing in public settings than state-run media ask the AD where the questions get filtered through. Or, it would be nice for the president to, when a request goes in, to speak to him, if it would be replied to, and that people can get some kind of idea of where you stand on this stuff. And again, I will reiterate one final time. That is not me trying to get anybody. That is not me, trying to get personal with anybody. But I look at the facts of the situation. I see how the fan base has responded with the thousands of people on KSO posting every day. And they want answers, and they haven't gotten a whole lot of them in a long time. So it's time for the people that are making the most money at Kansas State to step up and actually just, wear it like a man for once. And we're not seeing a lot of that right now. Jerome Tang kind of doing it, but like I said, great. I don't need to hear about you didn't deserve to wear the jersey. I want to hear why you didn't deserve to wear the jersey tonight.
Yeah, and that's just where this year has been at, and I think that's where a lot of the frustration is at right now, is just how everything has just gone. So, it got to go on and see what happens on Saturday, because like we said, it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah. I will not be there. I will not be making a 2-hour trip up there and back. I will be spending time with my family. I'll watch on TV, and we'll be here post game to chat about it once again. If you want to hear Jerome Tank's full post game comments, you can go over to the KSO YouTube. So stay right here and catch those. Listen to that. Plenty of post game coverage tonight and into tomorrow coming from this one. Also about to be a busy time for football. Drew and I have a big signing day show for everybody coming up on Wednesday. So lots still going on, even if it's not in the win column. So for Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening to K-State Online. We will talk to you again tomorrow.